Alright, so I made a little bit of art. And I can't zoom out because I'm crazy. There we are. A little tiny keyboard there. Nothing special. Imported in, we have a sprite, 2D, no point because that makes it cleaner. Slice it by 32. And there we have a whole whack of these. Oh yeah, we have an alphabet. So, what the hell can we do with an alphabet? Well, I went ahead and made these because it would take me too long to do this in the video, putting them out. But those are just images with a panel background. Nothing special. Like I said, they're literally just drag that into there. So, there is something we're going to need if we want a virtual keyboard, though. I highlight all my letters, and I'm going to add a selectable. And that's going to give us the ability to use inputs to actually move around these things. Because this will be usable for game pads and all that fun stuff. Because if you have a mouse and you got a keyboard, you don't need this. If you do, then you're crazy. So we need, I'm going to add something else here first. I'm going to add a little panel. I'm going to tell it to go to center and expand it out a little bit, and full alpha, and grab the very last one, stick him on there. And now we have like a little highlighting glow, and I'm going to deactivate that. So essentially, let's even call that glow, and then let's duplicate it. Alright, so we have a whole whack of things called glow. There, now we just find those, and let's set the positions to 0 and change their name to glow. There we go. They're all now in the right spots. Except for obviously the two big buttons that I made they're slightly modified. Right, so this guy will obviously need his expanded out, and this guy will need his expanded out. There we go. So we have a letter here, and it's going to have an FSM. Very, very simple. Let's call this, let's just call this glow. Alright, so all we're going to do is we're going to see if the event system, since when you're dealing with UI and the event system, the way, like, you can't, like, in reality you don't send logic to anything in the UI. You technically send everything to the event system, and the event system relays it to those objects. A little different than your standard monos. So anyways, so all we're going to do is we're just going to compare. So if the selected object is compared to ourselves, and we can just say equal, non-equal, if we're equal and if we're not equal, you know, two things can happen. If we're equal, let's activate a variable called glow. And we'll just finish and go back over here. We'll duplicate that, paste them down here, not equal. Only this one will be to deactivate. So we got to know what glow is, so let's get that in the beginning. So we're going to get child called glow. We'll store it as glow, and then we will start it with it deactivated. There we go. So now, as you can see, they should all deactivate. And by all, I mean the only one I put the logic on. And if I click it, it's activated. If I click somewhere else, it goes away. Perfect. So let's take that little piece of logic and just pass it around onto everything else. There we go. Now everything has that logic. So because we made it selectable just to start with, like if I click that, it's highlighted, and if I move, I'm hitting WASD around, we are bouncing around. Perfect. And I can technically also hit enter, and it should technically be submitting. Not that it does anything. Okay, cool. So we have that functioning so far. So the other thing I'm going to do is we have this whole thing as a keyboard, and I know it is, let's go like this. I'm going to anchor it this way. I know its height is, we'll call it 169. Nice even number. And I'm going to actually put its anchor point down there. So let's just put a little bit of logic here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, you know what? That'll be fine. We could do that. All right. Let's get key down. Do something real quick. Just a tab. And if that's the case, let's also have a bool in here. So that we can bool test. And true or false. Okay, so if is open is false, then let's tween scale. By tween scale, I mean tween scale from the current to 1. Let's go with a ease seen in out sign. And then on finish, we will actually, we're going to go to a new state up here and then come down. And vice versa. If, okay, well that's not tab, that's supposed to be true. Wait, no, that's supposed to be false. This one's true. That's confusing. Alright, so if we have bool test, if is open is true, we're going to go and close it. So we're going to do that. Set bool value to isOpen is false. And over here we'll do the same, but it's true. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set, if we're not going to use the mouse, we need to set something as our default, which you can also change that on the fly too. Let's use yeah, let's just use the backspace, I suppose. Alright, so I did not target the right object, so we need to target the keyboard. The keyboard is going to be doing the scaling, not the canvas. Now technically what we could do is you actually could put another tab in here. I guess we can just use the finished event. Actually, no. Let's keep it as a tab event, and we're just going to go there. Right, and that'll allow us to go rapid fire if we wanted to. So I'm also going to start with this guy at 0. So we hit tab, he opens up. We hit tab, he goes away. And if I hit it halfway, like he'll react. Okay, cool. That's all functioning as supposed to be. So let's build a panel, but while we're doing that, let's have this thing open so we're not working blind, because that would be stupid. And I'm just going to put in a little tiny background up here, because we're not going to use a input, like an input field. We're going to use a Text Mesh Pro. We'll have it there. We could even auto size it if we want. I'm not that worried about it. Yeah, let's go like that. Let's clear that out. Alright, so he's our texting object. So, now what we're going to do is, I'm using technically the old input system, so this FSM, if you're using the new input system, you'd have to just replace this one FSM, but the rest of it will all work just fine. So, on a letter, not those three are special, but all these letters, they all need an FSM, right? And they all need to feed into an FSM, which will be this control. So in the control, we're going to have, we can call it anything. Let's call it function, because that's a cool word. I like it. And we are going to get event properties. You could also get the event data if you don't have properties. I know some people for some reason don't have it. And we're going to get letter, and it is type string. So new letter. Actually, you know what? We shouldn't use function. That's a bad idea. I've decided I don't like the word function anymore. Let's add letter. Let's use that one. A little more understanding. Alright, so we're going to add letter. So what other events could we possibly have? We could have submit, and we could have delete. And a pile of other things if you really wanted to. I'm not going to go that far into it. I'm sure if you, once you guys see all this, you'll be able to add on to it all you want. So we need a variable because we need a word. The word is the word. That's our word. And we're going to have down here, I'll make it separate, set text mesh pro. And that's going to be this guy. To word. Just like that. That's all he's going to do. So now if that's the case, what is it to add a letter, right? So if we get a letter, all we're going to do is string append, right? Word and the new letter, and then let's just call this update text. So we don't have a crazy mess of things happening. We can just do that. Just do it this way. There we go. So now we are there. So what is to submit? Well, that can mean a bunch of different things. We'll look at that in a minute. What is it to delete? Well, there's no deleting action. How the hell do you do that? So the way we do that is we get a couple different actions here. Is A, we need to know how big the word is. And then we're going to take the word size. We're going to subtract 1 from the size, and we're going to get the left string from word size, and we'll store that in the word, and that's it. It's more or less we take all the letters except for the last letter, I suppose is the way would look at that. Alright, so okay, there's that. So that means on these guys particularly, we have an FSM. We can call this, we'll call this one function, so I still get to use my word. And it's going to have a variable, which is going to be a string. Make it easy, mark it as an input so we can type it here. Alright, so it's going to make a new event called send letter global, add it here, and if we get that, let's set event property letter type string our letter send event. We don't have that thing right now, so let's get root, because we don't want to do as little by hand as we can, right? That's the way you move fast. So as for reference, in the control, if we add letter, I'm going to use the variable root, right? So I got the control on the root. So there's that. So this guy here, he is Q. Right? Now I could technically copy him and just paste him. Right? So I can see W E so now we have all the letters that all come up into here, and they'll feed into here, and it will update. Right? Okay, so let's actually put the actual input, I guess, in a different one. We could put it in that one, but maybe we won't. So let's base it off of. Let's do this. Let's do this. FSM bool test. If you don't have FSM bool test, you have to just get the bool every frame and then test it, or just go to the ecosystem and get, you know, this one. All right, so let's go. Is open. True. And then we will do a false. Right. Is open, is not open. So if opened is true, we're over here. If we're over here, let's do a get input, or I guess get key down, and this is where you would put whatever input. Like if you're using the new input, this is like you wouldn't use key down, you would use like the gamepad button or whatever. You would use something, right? So now I'm going to use space because I don't have anything linked up, just to fire a input. So send letter, that's what we're going to do. And if that's the case, all we're going to do is we're going to get selected, and that's going to be the selected number, and then we are going to send event. And I'll use these things for reference. Right, function to send letter. Alright, so that's our selected number. And then we can just literally finish and go back there. If you're using the new input system, if you have an infinite loop, just make sure to put like a next frame event on your way back. Alright, so now that'll work for all the letters. It's not going to work for obviously those three yet because we haven't added those. They're a little different. Alright, so we hit tab, it pops it open, and we can move around. So if I hit space, I get G. Right, so we are building a letter, or building a word. Now, we might want to put limits on how many letters we can actually have, but we won't worry about that quite yet. Let's go over here. So the backspace. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take the logic from these guys, and I'm going to paste it on this guy, this guy, and this guy, my three kind of special buttons, because the logic to execute this FSM is going to be the same. The only difference is we're not going to set property and send the event of add letter, right? In this case, we're going to delete, right? And in this guy, he's our submit. So he doesn't need that. We'll call him submit. There we go. And space, which he can function just like a letter, only we're just going to put a space. Just like that. Now let's go in here and should we limit the numbers, I guess? Okay. we'll limit the numbers. So we are going to head of this and int compare. And as long as we get the order right of what's happening here, then we actually don't even need really any other FSMs, right? So let's say we're going to limit to 12, and if it's equal or greater, let's just go to the update text, and then that'll actually stop these ones from happening. All right, so let's test that out. Like I said, I don't actually have a gamepad or anything set up, so I'm still technically using the keyboard, but I'm not using, I am using keys, but I'm not using keys to type with. I mean, technically I am, I guess, but... Alright, so I hit space and I can type things, I can use space. See, there's a little bit of a space there. And I can backspace. Right? So I can type, and if I keep typing, I get to that size and it won't go any bigger. Right? And if I hit submit, we could pop up something here, or do whatever you do for submit. I don't know where you'd go, but from here we would obviously do something with this word, right? We'd send it off to the next phase, or we'd do something, or maybe it's a word game or something. I don't know. But anyway, so that is a nice little simple virtual keyboard. And like I said, so this type of sprite sheet, I'm sure if you even just Google sprite sheet of the alphabet, you can probably find something really easy for free. With that said, for Patreon members though, I'll actually put this folder, so it'll have that keyboard and this scene in there, so they can play with it, copy it, do whatever, it don't really matter. We also actually could add audio, right? You don't have to add it to every button. You could literally add it right here, where we could have a typing sound. And if you're not using the old input system, or whatever the case is, it's just a matter of changing this guy down. And you can use numerous ones here. You can have the game inputs, a couple different buttons. You could have, I don't know, touch things or whatever. As long as you have some way to fire off an event, it's really all you need right there, saying I'm choosing this letter. Everything else is all there and handled. Talk to you later.